The interview room was cold and dark. Only one light hung from the ceiling, casting long shadows on the metal walls. Vextal Moore sat in his chair, his 3 remaining arms resting on the table. His body showed the marks of war, burned skin, missing limbs, and scars that would never heal. Across from him sat Rixna, a young Keth journalist. She had her recording device ready and her notes spread out. This was her big break, the first interview with the famous war veteran who had fought humans 15 years ago. "Thank you for agreeing to this interview," Rixna said. Her voice was excited. "Our readers want to know what really happened during the Human-Keth War." Vextal looked at her with tired eyes. He had refused every interview request for 15 years. But now something had changed, something that made him want to speak. "You think you know about war?" Vextal said slowly. "You have studied our fights with other species. The Zephyrians with their crystal weapons, the Void Hunters with their dark ships. You think you understand?" Rixna nodded eagerly. She had indeed studied those wars in school. "But humans," Vextal continued, "humans are different. They do not just fight wars. They become the war itself." The old veteran shifted in his chair. His mechanical leg made a soft humming sound. "I was a battalion commander then," he said, young and proud. "I had fought in 12 battles across 4 systems. I thought I knew everything about combat. The Empire told us humans were weak. They said humans were just another primitive species that needed to be brought under our rule." Rixna wrote notes quickly. This was exactly what her readers wanted to hear. "We chose Kepler 442b as our first target," Vextal said. "It was a human colony world with about 2 million people. Our intelligence said it was lightly defended. We expected to take it in 3 days." The veteran paused and looked at the ceiling. His eyes seemed to see something far away. "The attack began at dawn. Our ships filled the sky like a metal storm. We had 3,000 soldiers, the best weapons, and full air support. The humans had maybe 500 soldiers and some old Earth weapons." "But you won, right?" Rixna asked. "I mean, eventually." Vextal laughed, but it was not a happy sound. "Won? Child, let me tell you what really happened." He took a deep breath and continued. "Our ships landed outside their main city, New Sol. Formed battle lines just like we always did. Professional, clean, efficient. Then, we marched toward the city. The first sign something was wrong came when we reached the outer buildings. There were no civilians, no panic, no running crowds. The city was quiet. Too quiet." Vextal's scarred face twisted into what might have been a smile. Then Colonel Hyunwoo Park's voice came over every speaker in the city. He spoke in our language. Perfect Keth, no translator needed. "What did he say?" Rixna asked. "He said, 'Welcome to Earth's playground. We have been waiting for you,'" the veteran continued. "We learned later that humans had been preparing for alien invasion for over 100 years. Not just military preparation, everything. Every human child learned basic combat. Every building was designed to become a fortress. Every street could be turned into a death trap. But surely your superior technology," Rixna began. "Superior?" Vextal interrupted. "They knew our technology better than we did. When our first scout unit entered the city, the humans were ready. Captain Sora Kim led a team that destroyed our entire advance guard in minutes. How? They had studied our armor. They knew exactly where to shoot to cause maximum damage. They had analyzed our weapons and built shields that could stop our plasma bolts. They even knew how our communication systems worked and jammed them perfectly." Vextal paused again. When he spoke, his voice was quieter. But the technology was not the worst part. It was how they fought. Other species fight to win battles. Humans fight like each battle is a festival. They smiled while shooting at us. They laughed while dodging our attacks. They treated war like a game they had been waiting their whole lives to play. I saw a human, soldier, could not have been older than 20 years, take on 3 of our best warriors with just a metal pipe and some explosives. He was humming a song while he fought, humming, like he was having fun." Rixna stopped writing. "That cannot be true." "I watched it happen," Vextal said firmly. "That was when I first understood. Humans do not fight because they have to. They fight because something deep inside them wants to. War brings out something in them that other species do not have." The siege of New Sol lasted 3 months, not 3 days. Every day the humans got stronger. Every night they built new traps. Every week they invented new ways to hurt us. By the end of the first month, my soldiers were afraid to sleep. The humans would sneak into our camps and leave presents. Not bombs or weapons, presents, little toys or drawings. Sometimes food from their own supplies. That sounds nice, Rixina said, confused. No, Vextal shook his head. It was not nice. It was a message. They were telling us they could kill us anytime they wanted, but they chose not to. They were playing with us. The veteran looked directly at Rixina. Do you understand what it means to fight an enemy who could kill you but decides to let you live? It is worse than any torture. After 3 months, we received orders to retreat. The Empire called it a strategic withdrawal. We called it running away. But that was just the beginning, Vextal said. That was when we learned that the humans on Kepler 442b were not even real soldiers. They were just colonists, regular people with families and jobs. The real human military was still waiting on Earth. Rixina put down her pen. Her hand was shaking slightly. The Empire decided to send the full fleet. Vextal continued. 1 million soldiers. Our best ships. Our most powerful weapons. We were going to show these humans what real war looked like. He leaned forward, his remaining eyes fixed on the young journalist. But first, let me tell you what we learned about human military doctrine. Rule 1. Every human is a potential soldier. Rule 2. Every location is a potential battlefield. Rule 3. Every object is a potential weapon. And Rule 4. He paused. Rule 4. Humans never fight fair because fairness is a luxury only the weak can afford. Rixina realized she had stopped breathing. She took a shaky breath and picked up her pen again. What happened next? She whispered. Vextal's mechanical leg hummed as he shifted position. Outside, rain began to fall against the small window. Next, he said, we learned that everything we had seen on Kepler 442b was just humans being polite. Vextal reached for the glass of water on the table with one of his remaining arms. The mechanical joints in his prosthetic hand made small clicking sounds as he gripped the glass. The Empire sent me back to human space 6 months later, he said after taking a drink. This time I was leading 5 battalions against New Sol. We had learned from our mistakes. Better armor, stronger weapons, new tactics. Rixina leaned forward. So you were ready for them? The old veteran made that bitter laugh again. We thought we were. The commanders told us the humans had gotten lucky the first time. They said humans were just better at hiding than most species. Nothing more. We approached the city differently this time. No fancy formations. No predictable patterns. We split into small groups and attacked from 12 different directions at once. Vextal set down his glass and continued. The first group to enter the city was led by Captain Velra. She was one of our best officers. Smart, careful, experienced. Her team made it 3 blocks into the city before the humans struck. What happened? The buildings exploded. Not all at once, but in sequence, like falling dominoes. Each explosion was timed perfectly to drive her team toward the next trap. The humans had turned 6 city blocks into one giant puzzle of death. The veteran's voice grew quieter. But that was not the worst part. We found Captain Velra 3 days later. She was alive. The humans had captured her, treated her wounds, and left her tied to a lamppost with a note. What did the note say? It said, "Thank you for the practice. Send more next time." It was signed by Sergeant Jae Hyun Lee. Rixina wrote the name down. Who was he? A human soldier, 23 years old. Before the war, he worked in a flower shop. During the war, he became something else entirely. His unit killed over 400 of our soldiers in 2 months. But here is the strange part. They never killed anyone who surrendered. Vextal shifted in his chair. Lee's team would attack our positions like wild animals. Screaming, laughing, fighting with knives when their guns ran out of bullets. But the moment someone dropped their weapon and raised their hands, they became completely different. Gentle, professional. They would give prisoners food and medical care. That sounds civilized. No, Vextal shook his head firmly. It was calculated. They knew that treating prisoners well would make more soldiers surrender. And soldiers who surrender do not fight back. It was psychological warfare disguised as kindness, the veteran continued. But Lee was nothing compared to Major Yoonji Choi. She was in charge of what humans called information warfare. We called it something else. What? Mental torture. Vextal's scarred face showed old pain. Choi's teams would intercept our communications. Then they would send messages to our soldiers pretending to be from home. Fake letters from families. False reports about victories and defeats. They would make our own soldiers doubt everything. I received a message that looked like it came from my mate back on the homeworld. It talked about how proud she was of me, how our eggs had hatched successfully, how the younglings were growing strong. Rixna waited for him to continue. I did not have a mate. I had never had eggs. But for 3 days I believed I did. The humans had created an entire fake life for me and made it feel real. When I finally realized the truth, I almost went insane. Why would they do that? Because a soldier who is thinking about his family back home is not thinking about the battle in front of him. A soldier who doubts his orders cannot fight effectively. A soldier who does not trust his own memories becomes useless. Vextal took another drink of water. His hand was shaking slightly. The worst was what they did to Colonel Draktar's unit. The humans somehow got recordings of our soldiers' voices. Then they used those recordings to send fake radio messages during battles. Fake messages. Imagine you are in the middle of a firefight. You hear your commander's voice telling you to retreat. You hear your fellow soldiers calling for help. You hear reports that your position has been overrun. But none of it is real. It is all human voices pretending to be your friends. Draktar's unit tore itself apart. Soldiers shot each other because they thought they were shooting humans. Teams abandoned their positions because they thought they had been ordered to retreat. By the end, the humans did not need to attack them at all. They had destroyed themselves. Rixna stopped writing. This seems impossible. How could humans learn your language and voices so quickly? That was what we thought too. Until we captured one of their communications specialists. A young female named Corporal Sujin Yu. She spoke 17 different languages fluently. Not just our language, but our dialects, our accents, our military terminology. 17 languages. She told us it was normal for humans. Most of them spoke at least 3 or 4 languages. Some spoke 10 or more. They study language the way we study engineering, as a tool for survival. Vextal leaned back in his chair. But the languages were just the beginning. You told us that humans had been studying alien species for over 2 centuries. Not just our technology or our culture. Everything. How we think, how we feel, how we fight, how we love, how we fear. They knew things about us that we did not know about ourselves. They could predict what we would do before we did it. They understood our weaknesses better than our own doctors. By the 3rd month of fighting, our soldiers were afraid to trust their own senses. Every sound could be a human trick. Every message could be fake. Every shadow could be an enemy. That was when I met Dr. Donghyun Shin. Who was he? A human scientist. But not the kind that stays in laboratories. He worked on the battlefield. While we were shooting at each other, he was collecting samples. Vextal's voice became very quiet. Skin samples, blood samples, pieces of our armor, fragments of our weapons. He was studying us like we were insects. 3 weeks later, the humans deployed their first biological weapon. It was a virus that only affected Keth physiology. It did not kill us, but it made us very sick, weak, unable to fight effectively. But again, they could have made it deadly. They chose not to. They wanted us alive but helpless. Like pets. Rixna put down her pen. I do not understand. If they could have killed you all, why did they not? Vextal looked at her with something like pity. That is the question that has haunted me for 15 years. Why did they show mercy when they could have shown none? The answer came from Colonel Hyunwoo Park himself. The same human who had welcomed us to their playground months earlier. He sent a message to all our forces. What did he say? He said, "War is not about killing your enemy. It is about making your enemy understand that fighting you was a mistake. Dead soldiers cannot learn from their mistakes. Living soldiers can." Vextal finished his water and set the glass down carefully. That was when I realized we were not fighting a war. We were attending a school, and the humans were teaching us lessons we would never forget. The room fell silent except for the sound of rain against the window. What happened next? Rixna asked softly. Next, Vextal said. We learned what humans could do when they stopped being teachers and started being students. The rain outside had grown heavier. Vextal listened to it for a moment before continuing his story. The Empire was getting frustrated, he said. We had been fighting for 8 months and had captured only 1 human city. 1 city out of hundreds. The war was supposed to be over in weeks. Rixna nodded. She had read about this in her history books. The textbooks called it the Long Campaign, so they sent reinforcements. More ships, more soldiers, better weapons. They also sent General Mordak, one of the Empire's greatest military minds. I remember that name, Rixna said. He won the Zephyrian War. Yes, in 3 months, against an enemy that had fought us to a standstill for 2 years. The Empire thought he could do the same with humans. Vextal's mechanical leg whirred as he shifted position. General Mordak studied all our battle reports. He analyzed every human tactic. Then he came up with a plan that should have worked perfectly. What was the plan? Simultaneous attacks on 12 human worlds. Overwhelming force. No mercy, no games. Just pure military destruction designed to end the war quickly. The veteran paused. It was a good plan. Against any other species, it would have worked. But the humans were ready? No, Vextal said. That is what made it so frightening. They were not ready. We caught them by surprise. Our attacks were successful. We captured 3 worlds in the first week. Rixna looked confused. Then what went wrong? We won too easily. That should have been our first warning. Vextal leaned forward. When you defeat humans in battle, they do not retreat and plan their next move. They do not send messages asking for reinforcements. They do something else entirely. What? They learn, immediately, in real time. During the battle itself, the veteran continued. On the world Kepler 186F, we destroyed the main human military base in 6 hours. Complete victory. But while we were celebrating, a human engineer named Dr. Dong Hyun Shin was already studying the wreckage of our weapons. The same scientist from before? Yes, but this time he was not alone. The humans had teams of scientists embedded with every military unit. While their soldiers were dying, their scientists were learning. Within 12 hours, Shin's team had figured out how to jam our plasma rifles. Within 24 hours, they had built devices that could jam them. Within 48 hours, every human soldier on the planet had one. Rixna stopped writing. That is impossible. It takes weeks to develop new technology. For us, yes. For humans, no. They think differently about technology. We see weapons as finished products. Humans see them as starting points. Vexital's voice grew more intense. But the weapons were nothing compared to what they did with our tactics. We would use a battle formation once, and the humans would have a counter for it the next day. We would deploy a new strategy, and they would already be 3 steps ahead. How? Human children play games where they pretend to be soldiers. They learn strategy before they learn to read. Every human civilian has some knowledge of military tactics. When their military needed new ideas, they asked everyone. Store clerks, teachers, even children. The veteran took a deep breath. I watched a human child, maybe 10 years old, draw a picture that showed how to trap our hover tanks in narrow streets. Her mother, who worked in a restaurant, suggested using cooking oil to make our soldiers slip and fall. Her father, who repaired machines, showed them how to turn our own equipment against us. An entire planet of people thinking of ways to defeat you. Exactly. And they were good at it. Frighteningly good, Vextal continued. On Kepler 452b, we faced something new. Human pack hunters, small groups of soldiers led by Corporal Min Ho Yoon, who specialized in hunting our officers. They would study our command structure and identify the most important targets. Then they would plan elaborate traps designed to capture or kill specific individuals. I lost 3 of my best lieutenants to Yoon's team in 1 week. Each death was different. Each trap was perfectly designed for that particular officer's habits and weaknesses. How did they know so much about your officers? They watched us. For months, they had hidden cameras in places we never thought to look. They studied how each officer walked, talked, made decisions. They knew our personalities better than we knew them ourselves. Vextal's scarred face showed old pain. Lieutenant Cartel was killed because he always checked his equipment 3 times before battle. The humans left a booby trap in his weapon that would only activate after the 3rd inspection. Commander Veloth died because she always ate the same meal before fighting. The humans poisoned that specific food in the supply depot. Only that food. Nothing else. Captain Dexmore was captured because he always sang a particular song when he was nervous. The humans played that song over the communication system to lure him into a trap. Rixna had stopped writing again. Her pen hung motionless in her hand. But the worst was what happened to the civilians, Vextal continued. The human civilians? No. Ours. The humans somehow managed to send messages directly to civilian populations on Keth worlds. Not threats. Not propaganda, just information. What kind of information? True information about the war. How many soldiers we were losing. How much the war was costing. How little progress we were making. But they presented it in a way that made our own government look incompetent. Vextal's voice became bitter. They sent detailed reports to military families showing exactly how their sons and daughters had died. Not to cause pain, but to show that the deaths had been unnecessary, preventable. They sent economic analyses to business leaders showing how the war was destroying trade. They sent cultural studies to intellectuals showing how the war was damaging our society. All of it was true. All of it was carefully researched. All of it was designed to turn our own people against the war effort. That sounds like treason. It was brilliance. The humans understood that they could not just defeat our military. They needed to defeat our will to fight, and the best way to do that was to let our own people see the truth about what the war was really costing us. Vextal shifted in his chair again, but even that was not the worst part. What was worse? The humans started copying our technology and improving it. Not just copying it, making it better. We would introduce a new weapon, and within weeks the humans would have their own version that was faster, stronger, more accurate. They would take our designs and fix problems that we had not even known existed. I saw human soldiers using Keth plasma rifles that were more effective than the ones our own engineers had built. They had modified them in ways that we had never thought of. But how? Your technology was more advanced. Yes, but they were better at understanding how to use it. We built weapons to meet specifications. Humans built weapons to solve problems. Vextal looked directly at Rixna. Do you know what the most frightening moment of the entire war was for me? She shook her head. It was when I realized that the humans were not just fighting us. They were studying us. Every battle was an experiment. Every defeat was a learning opportunity. Every victory was data to be analyzed. They were not trying to beat us as quickly as possible. They were trying to understand us as completely as possible. Because they knew that once they understood us, victory would be inevitable. The room fell quiet except for the rain and the soft humming of Vextal's mechanical leg. After 18 months of fighting, he said finally, General Mordak sent a message to the Keth High Command. It said, "We are not fighting a primitive species. We are fighting a species that has turned warfare into a science, and they are better at it than we are." What did the High Command say? Vextal smiled grimly. They ordered him to attack Earth itself, the human homeworld. They believed that if we could defeat humans on their own planet, the war would end. And did you? Oh yes, Vextal said. We attacked Earth, all of us. Every ship. Every soldier. Everything the Empire had. He paused, looking out at the rain. That was when we learned what humans were really capable of when they stopped playing games. Vextal was quiet for a long time. The sound of rain filled the small room. When he finally spoke again, his voice was different. Softer. More afraid. The attack on Earth began 2 years after the war started. Every ship in the Keth Empire's fleet, 2 million soldiers, the largest military force we had ever assembled. Rixna had picked up her pen again, but her hand was still shaking slightly. We thought we knew what to expect, Vextal continued. More traps, more games, more psychological warfare. We were prepared for all of that, but you were wrong. Completely wrong. The humans we had been fighting for 2 years were not the same humans who defended Earth. The veteran shifted his mechanical leg. The humming sound seemed louder in the quiet room. The first sign that something was different came when we reached Earth's solar system. There were no hidden mines. No surprise attacks. No clever traps. Just empty space and a single message broadcast on all frequencies. What did it say? It was from Admiral Jinsu Quan, the commander of Earth's defense fleet. He said, "Welcome to our home. You have seen what we can do when we are being polite. Now you will see what we can do when we are not." Vextal took a drink of water with his mechanical hand. The first battle happened near Earth's moon. Our advance fleet encountered 30 human ships. We had 300. It should have been easy, but it was not. The human ships did not try to outmaneuver us or outsmart us. They did something we had never seen before. They rammed our ships. Rixna looked up from her notes. Rammed them? Yes, but not just suicide attacks. These were calculated ramming maneuvers. Each human ship was loaded with nuclear weapons set to detonate on impact. One human ship could destroy 3 or 4 of ours, but that means the human crews died too. Yes, and they were happy about it. I could hear them over the radio, laughing and singing as they flew into our ships, like they were going to a celebration instead of their deaths. Vextal's voice grew quieter, but the worst part was the efficiency. They did not ram us randomly. They targeted specific ships in a precise pattern designed to break our formation and trap our remaining vessels. 30 human ships destroyed almost half our advance fleet. The survivors limped back to the main group in complete terror. What did your commanders do? General Mordak ordered a full assault. Every ship. Every weapon. He said we would overwhelm them with pure firepower. Vextile laughed bitterly. We should have retreated then. But our pride would not let us. We thought numbers would be enough. The main battle began at dawn, Earth time. Our fleet spread across the sky like a dark cloud. 2,000 ships against maybe 200 human vessels. You should have won easily, we should have. But the humans had spent 2 years preparing for this exact moment. Every defense, every weapon, every strategy was designed specifically to fight us, the veteran continued. The human ships moved like they were dancing. Perfect coordination. Every movement planned. Every attack timed to support the others. But more frightening was their space stations. What we thought were simple research platforms were actually weapons. Massive railguns disguised as radio telescopes, missile launchers hidden inside solar collectors, battle stations that looked like civilian habitats. Earth's entire orbital infrastructure was a trap, and we flew right into it. How many ships did you lose? In the first hour? 300. But that was just the beginning. Vextile's remaining eyes stared at something far away. The humans had built weapons we did not know were possible. Gravity bombs that crushed our ships like tin cans. Energy weapons that could cut through our strongest armor like paper. And something they called smart mines that could track and follow our vessels. But the most terrifying thing was not their weapons. It was their tactics. They fought like they could see the future. Every time we changed our strategy, they were already ready for it. Every time we tried to retreat, they had already cut off our escape routes. Every time we thought we had an advantage, they had already taken it away. I watched Admiral Jin Soo Kwan's flagship ram our command ship while launching fighters and firing weapons all at the same time. The ship was coming apart around him, but he was still giving orders and coordinating attacks. His last transmission before his ship exploded was not a cry for help or a message to his family. It was tactical data for the other human ships about weak points in our armor. Rixna had stopped writing again. He died to help his fellow soldiers? No, he died because that was his job. And humans are very good at their jobs. But the space battle was nothing compared to what happened when we reached Earth's surface. Vextile took another drink of water. His hand was steadier now, as if talking about the horror was helping him deal with it. We managed to land about 500,000 soldiers on Earth, the largest invasion force in galactic history. We were proud of ourselves for getting through their space defenses. Later we learned that they had let us land. The whole thing was planned. What do you mean? Earth was ready for invasion. Not just the military, everything. Every building was a fortress. Every street was a killing ground. Every citizen was a potential soldier. I saw human children, maybe 12 years old, operating weapon systems that our adult soldiers could barely understand. I saw elderly humans in wheelchairs coordinating artillery strikes with handheld devices. The entire planet was militarized. Not just the army or the government, everyone. Teachers fought alongside soldiers. Doctors treated wounded fighters while shooting at us with their other hand. Even the animals seemed trained to attack us. Animals? Dogs that could smell our pheromones from miles away and track us through any terrain. Birds that had been trained to spot our camouflage and call out our positions. I even saw cats that had been fitted with small cameras to spy on our movements. Vextile shook his head in amazement. But the most frightening were the civilians. They did not run or hide or surrender. They fought with everything they had. I watched a human grandmother hold off an entire squad of our soldiers for 6 hours, using nothing but an old hunting rifle and perfect knowledge of her neighborhood. She knew every hiding spot, every angle, every escape route. When we finally captured her position, she was gone, but she had left behind detailed maps showing the locations of all our soldiers and vehicles. Maps that were broadcast to every human fighter in the area. How did she know where you all were? She had been watching. For hours. While fighting us, she was also collecting intelligence. Because for humans, every battle is also a reconnaissance mission. But the truly frightening moment came when we encountered Lieutenant Colonel Subin Han's unit. Who was she? A human special forces officer. She led a team that specialized in zero-gravity combat. They attacked our ships that were still in orbit. How is that possible? They used small, fast spacecraft to get close to our vessels. Then they would cut through the hull and fight inside the ships, in zero gravity. While the ships were still moving and fighting, I watched Han's team capture one of our dreadnoughts, our largest warship. With just 20 soldiers, they moved through the ship like ghosts, taking control of crucial systems while avoiding our security forces. Within 2 hours, they were using our own ship to attack other Keth vessels. They understood our technology better than our own crews did. Vextal leaned back in his chair. The mechanical joints in his prosthetics whirred softly. After 6 months of fighting on Earth, we had lost 60% of our forces. The planet was still in human hands. Our supply lines were destroyed. Our communication networks were compromised. Our soldiers were demoralized and afraid. That was when General Mordak sent his final message to the High Command. What did he say? He said, "We are not fighting humans anymore. We are fighting Earth itself. The planet has become a living weapon and we cannot defeat it." The room was quiet except for the rain, which had grown softer. What happened next? Rixana asked. Vextal smiled grimly. Next, the humans got tired of playing defense. They decided to show us what they could do when they went on the attack. The rain had stopped. Vextal noticed this and seemed to take it as a sign to continue. His mechanical leg had stopped humming, leaving the room completely silent except for their voices. The human counterattack began 3 months after we landed on Earth, he said. By then our forces were scattered and weak. We thought we were safe because humans had never left their own solar system before. We thought they would stay on Earth and defend what they had. Rixana adjusted her recording device. But they did not stay. No, they came after us, but not the way we expected. Vextal's remaining eyes grew distant again. The first sign of trouble came from our outpost on Kepler 62c. It was a small base, maybe 50 soldiers, used to monitor human communications. One day, all contact stopped. What happened to them? We sent a ship to investigate. The base was empty. No bodies, no signs of battle, just empty buildings and a single message painted on the command center wall. What did it say? It said, "Gone fishing. Back soon." It was signed by Captain Wu Jin Nam. The veteran took a drink of water. His mechanical hand moved more smoothly now, as if the storytelling was helping his coordination. 3 days later, our supply depot on Kepler 438b went silent. Then our communication relay on Kepler 442c. Then our fuel station on Kepler 186d. One by one, our support bases started disappearing. But how were humans getting to these places? They did not have the technology for long-distance space travel. That is what we thought too, until we found out they were using our own ships. Rixana looked up from her notes. What do you mean? Every human team that captured one of our bases also captured our ships. Then they learned to fly them. Not just fly them, they improved them. Made them faster, quieter, more efficient. Within 6 months, there were human crews operating Keth ships better than Keth crews could. They understood our technology so well that they could repair and modify it without even looking at manuals. Vextal continued. But the ships were just tools. The real terror was the humans themselves. They hunted us like animals. Captain Nam's team specialized in what they called deep penetration raids. They would travel hundreds of light years behind our lines, strike at important targets, then disappear before we could respond. But they did not just attack randomly. Every raid was carefully planned to cause maximum damage with minimum effort. They studied our supply chains and hit the most critical points. They analyzed our communication networks and attacked the most important nodes. I received reports from all across the Empire, human teams appearing in places they should not be able to reach, capturing facilities they should not be able to find, using tactics they should not be able to know. How were they getting this information? From us. Every Keth soldier they captured, every base they took, every ship they destroyed, it all gave them more intelligence about our operations. But more than that, they were learning to think like us, to predict our actions, to be where we least expected them. Vextal's voice grew darker. The worst was what happened to our leadership. Human teams started hunting our commanders specifically. They called it headhunting. Small groups of human soldiers whose only job was to find and capture or kill high-ranking Keth officers. These teams knew everything about their targets, personal habits, daily routines, security procedures, family relationships. They studied us for weeks before making their moves. General Carthel was captured while visiting his family on the homeworld. The humans somehow knew his travel schedule and intercepted his transport. They replaced his guards with human soldiers wearing Keth armor. Admiral Velsara was killed in her own command center by a human soldier who had been disguised as a maintenance worker for 3 months. 3 months! He had been fixing our equipment and listening to our plans the entire time. Commander Dexcol was taken from his private quarters by humans who knew the access codes to his personal security system. They had been monitoring his communications and learned his passwords. Rixna had stopped writing. "This seems impossible. How could they infiltrate so deeply into your military?" Because they were not just soldiers. They were actors, linguists, psychologists, and engineers all at once. Each human operative was trained in dozens of different skills. I met one of these infiltrators after the war, a woman named Major Haewon Jung. She told me she had spent 6 months living on a Keth world, working as a civilian translator while gathering intelligence. She spoke our language perfectly, knew our customs, understood our politics. She could pass for Keth in everything except physical appearance. And even that she managed to disguise with clever clothing and makeup. Vextal shifted in his chair, but the infiltration was just the beginning. The humans also launched a massive information war against us. What kind of information war? They somehow gained access to our public communication networks. Not military channels, civilian ones. News broadcasts, entertainment programs, educational systems. Then they began broadcasting their own messages. Not propaganda. Just facts. True information about the war that our own government was hiding from our people. They showed civilian populations on Keth worlds exactly how much the war was costing, how many soldiers were dying, how little progress we were making, all presented in calm, reasonable voices with careful documentation. But they also did something cleverer. They broadcast human entertainment programs. Rixna looked confused. Entertainment? Music, stories, art, all designed to show Keith civilians that humans were not the monsters our government said they were. They were just people with families and dreams and hopes. I watched Keith children singing human songs, Keth teenagers watching human movies, Keth adults reading human poetry, all of it translated into perfect Keth. The humans were not trying to make us afraid of them. They were trying to make us understand them, and understanding, it turned out, was more powerful than fear. Within a year, there were protests on Keth worlds, civilian groups demanding an end to the war, political leaders questioning the government's decisions, economic leaders calculating the true cost of continued fighting. Vextal's voice became quieter, but the most devastating attack was not on our military or our civilians. It was on our pride. What do you mean? The humans began releasing detailed analyses of every major battle. Not just what happened, but why it happened. They showed exactly how they had predicted our moves, countered our strategies, and turned our strengths against us. They published these analyses in our own language and broadcast them throughout the Empire. Every Keth soldier could read exactly how they had been outsmarted. Every Keth commander could see precisely where they had made mistakes. It was humiliating, but it was also educational. And many Keth military leaders began to realize that continuing the war was not just futile, it was stupid. After 3 years of fighting, our forces were scattered across dozens of worlds. Our supply lines were broken. Our communications were compromised. Our leadership was demoralized. The Empire had lost over 70% of its military strength. Our economy was collapsing. Our civilian population was demanding peace. Vextal looked directly at Rixna. That was when the humans made their most terrifying move of all. What was that? They offered to surrender. Rixna's pen slipped from her hand. What? You heard me correctly. The humans sent a message to our high command offering to surrender unconditionally. They said they would submit to Keth rule and pay any price we demanded. But why would they do that when they were winning? Vextal smiled grimly. Because they wanted to show us something. They wanted us to understand what we had really been fighting. The message was signed by General Kyung-Ho Lee, the overall commander of human military forces. He said, "We surrender not because we cannot continue fighting, but because we choose to stop. We could destroy you, but we prefer to teach you. Consider this lesson complete." The room fell silent. Outside, the clouds were beginning to clear. What happened next? Rixna whispered. Next, Vextal said, we learned that everything we thought we knew about humans was wrong. And everything we thought we knew about ourselves was wrong too.